Operation Black Buck, the longest bomber raid in history. The Falklands War ignites why Black Buck was launched. In 1982, a remote cluster of islands in the South Atlantic suddenly became the center of a global crisis. The Falklands War had erupted when Argentina invaded the British-controlled Falkland Islands, claiming sovereignty over the territory. For the UK, this was not just about a few islands, it was about national pride, international law, and military credibility. The British needed to send a clear message, one that would reach both the enemy and the world. That message came in the form of Operation Black Buck, a daring air raid launched from Ascension Island, located over 6,600 kilometers, 4,100 miles, away from the target. The mission? Destroy the airfield at Port Stanley to cripple Argentine air operations and regain strategic advantage. But this wasn't just a typical bombing run. This was a bold show of strength, a technological feat, and a historical first. Never before had such a long-range bombing raid been attempted with Cold War-era equipment. The operation would push the limits of logistics, strategy, and raw determination. What the world was about to witness wasn't just a battle, it was a masterclass in military innovation. The impossible mission, planning the world's longest bomber raid. Planning Operation Black Buck was nothing short of madness, and yet, it was executed with surgical precision. Imagine launching an old, 1950s-era Avro Vulcan bomber, never designed for such a range, and flying it deep into enemy territory with no support base nearby. That's exactly what the RAF chose to do. To reach the Falklands, the Vulcans would need to refuel in the air multiple times. But here's the twist, even the refueling aircraft, the Handley Page Victors, needed to be refueled in mid-air. This created a staggering chain of tankers fueling tankers, all synchronized perfectly over thousands of kilometers of open ocean. The entire mission was a logistical ballet, involving 11 Victors, 2 Vulcans, and over 600,000 liters of fuel. One mistake, one delay, and the whole operation could fail catastrophically. Coordinating multiple aircraft in hostile skies with 1980s tech wasn't just difficult, it was borderline insane. But this was Britain's moment to prove that no distance, no limitation, could stop its forces from defending their territory. Operation Black Buck was more than a mission, it was a signal to the world that technology, when backed by courage and strategy, could achieve the impossible. Weapons, aircraft and technology, inside the Vulcan bomber. At the heart of Operation Black Buck was the legendary Avro Vulcan, a delta-wing strategic bomber that looked like a futuristic spacecraft from the 1950s. Designed for nuclear warfare during the Cold War, the Vulcan was never meant for conventional long-range bombing. Yet, in 1982, it was revived for one final mission. And it would go down in history. Sleek, powerful, and iconic, the Vulcan was powered by 4 Rolls-Royce Olympus engines, the same technology that later helped power the Concorde. But the real magic wasn't just in speed, it was in its electronic countermeasures, ECM. These systems helped the Vulcan evade Argentine radar, jammers confused enemy air defenses, and chaff dispensers created ghost signatures in the sky. Armed with a payload of 21x 1,000-pound bombs, the Vulcan wasn't there to carpet bomb, it was there for precision disruption. The main goal, crater the Port Stanley runway to deny Argentina's fighters the ability to take off. But operating the Vulcan required genius-level coordination. The aircraft's crew had to manage navigation, radar evasion, bombing accuracy, and fuel monitoring all over hostile waters, in complete radio silence. The raid unfolds, a 16-hour journey into enemy territory. The night sky above the Atlantic was silent, yet history was in motion. On April 30, 1982, a single Avro Vulcan bomber, tail number XM607, roared down the runway of Ascension Island. What lay ahead was a journey so daring, so complex, it would stretch the limits of endurance, engineering, and luck, a 16-hour round trip into enemy airspace, covering over 8,000 miles. Refueling began almost immediately. The Victors, RAF's aerial tankers, began the intricate aerial dance, delivering fuel in mid-air. It was a delicate ballet of timing and precision. Miss a connection, and the Vulcan would run dry over the ocean with no hope of return. As the Vulcan neared the Falklands, the crew prepared for their single bombing run. Flying at extreme altitude, the bomber dropped to low-level flight to avoid radar. In pitch darkness, the crew navigated hostile skies, aware that Argentine radar and anti-aircraft defenses could be waiting. Then, in a moment of calculated precision, 21 bombs were released. One struck directly in the center of Port Stanley's runway, rendering it useless for fighter jets. Though only one bomb hit the target as intended, that single strike achieved its strategic goal: psychological dominance. Argentina's military now knew the British could strike anywhere, anytime. But the mission wasn't over. The return journey demanded another series of tense mid-air refuelings. Exhausted, the crew fought through fatigue, turbulence, and technical glitches. Finally, after 16 grueling hours, XM607 touched back down on Ascension Island, having completed the longest bombing raid in history. Impact and legacy. Did Operation Black Buck change modern warfare? Operation Black Buck wasn't just a tactical move, it was psychological warfare at its finest. Although militarily limited in damage, the raid sent a powerful global message: Britain could project power across oceans. It forced Argentina to reconsider their air strategy, limited their use of Port Stanley, and boosted British morale. More importantly, Black Buck reshaped how the world viewed long-range strike capability. It underscored the critical role of aerial refueling, precision logistics, and psychological impact over brute force. It was a wake-up call for modern militaries. Even Cold War relics, when paired with innovation, could rewrite the rules of engagement.